we have everybody here. I'm gonna call the meeting to order at 7:10. And so, folks, just so everyone knows, there's been a lot of changes, not a lot going on with the budget, as you can see by the spreadsheet. Joe's been talking to a lot of people. And the reason why Dennis is back, because Dennis was with us last week, is to tell us the need of a scoreboard at the baseball field at the high school, and why we need it. And then we can discuss, Dennis is gonna tell us the need, we can discuss it afterwards, but go ahead, Dennis. You can,
Okay,
go for that.
Yeah, so the scoreboard at the baseball field, it's pretty old. I know it was out there. Oh, I apologize if I don't have an exact year, but I know it was well before we took over the grounds, because that was the same scoreboard. Yeah, I mean, you're talking probably 80s, quite possibly, if definitely no later than 89. And it's a pretty unique setup. It's a big giant, massive pedestal that actually has a pin and it can be rotated. So we can rotate it when we played field hockey out in the grass field, and then we rotate it the other way. So it's multi-use. Unfortunately, it's past its day. We tried last year taking the panels off. Some of the banks, it's kind of like an old light bright, if you can picture that. So the banks are out. We tried grabbing some of the innings and moving them around, and we couldn't get the number 6s and 5s and 3s, and it was it's gone basically. So now we have this $200,000 field, and we don't have a scoreboard. So we had a price from 19 to come out and get a new one, and it's one of the local companies that deals with scoreboards all over New England, and it's about $7,000. It's a pretty big sign because it's pretty far out. It's typical signs can be anywhere from 4x8, to 5x10. This one's almost 5 feet by 14 feet long, so you can see it basically from. The problem is you're looking into the sun basically all the time when you're at Walsh Field. So, and it has to be big enough if we ever do field hockey in the outfield. So, they have the pedestal, so that saves us a little money, but the price of scoreboards has gone up too. So, there's a price, and the gentleman was trying to get down to the, absolute pennies, but he said definitely 14.5, and he was pretty confident it would come in a little under that. I'm not too concerned because where we have a scoreboard up at Landry with the same company in Beasley, if we did come a couple hundred over, we certainly could apply that to service calls to the scoreboards that are up there. And we do have to call them periodically because that's a remote control unit, and it has an antenna system in it. So when you get into severe weather, sometimes it does make the antennas go a little hokey, and you kind of got to call the company and they adjust them. So, but you like I said, they have a contingency of about $5,000 to mount it, and it's usually using a semi crane or a lull and 2 or 3 people to mount and hardware and test and teach us with the controllers and whatnot. So, and we have the option to put a 2-foot by 14-foot bunting, team logo on the top of it, whatever that may be. I'm not saying it's going to be a Warrior emblem or not, but it's faded right now. So obviously that price does include a 2-foot by 14-foot banner of our choice, whatever we wanted to do. So, and that'd be LED technology, and I think that's really the right thing. So we didn't have the money in with Walsh when we did it originally. That netting system just ended up exhausting everything. That was because of the water table and the peat, and those footings were enormous. That was a big price tag for that project. So,
Dennis, I'm just gonna throw it out there. Update us on all that, because we just spent the $200,000 on the netting 2 years ago, and then what, 30 or 40,000 on the field itself, correct? Last spring.
Yep.
So
yep.
we're not throwing money into a dead horse. there's been a lot of money put into this field for other things to make it updated. And from what I know, I don't think that scoreboard has been operational for over 10 years. The one that's
Yeah,
now.
it's been a long time. Like I said, I think, some of the numbers were working, then one side wouldn't work, then, none of the innings were working, and then we tried to, it was hit or miss, and then when it wouldn't work, it'd be during a game, so everybody's reading the wrong amounts, and so it was kind of frustrating. So even when we did that field over in-house back in 2000, and it was pretty good back then even. We got a lot of plugs by WRKO and radio. They used to come on Sunday nights and watch the Legion and the Merchants play there. We got a lot of radio broadcasts from that, and it wasn't working then. So it was it was kind of the missing piece of the puzzle. But I think at this point now, this is the time to do it, because if we don't, then we kind of like what Frank said. I think then we're 5 years down the road, and you say, well, does the baseball field warrant a new scoreboard? 10 years. Well, is the field too old to warrant that kind of a price tag? So we did one at Blatt's, and that was with help of the Bob Burdette and his foundation for funding. So we got help there. That's a lot smaller. That's only a 4x8. So and that one, just in comparison, is, well, almost twice as small, and that was right around 13. So I think for this company, local, to come in with 14 for one that's as big as the one it is, I think that's pretty respectable too. And they realize that they have a lot of work over here in Wakefield and in local other towns and Little League. So I didn't know that they had actually worked with Wakefield Little League with their 2 scoreboards as well. So they're familiar with us.
All right, anybody
Any
got a specific question for Dennis on the scoreboards relating anything, or it is an add-on because it wasn't on last week's presentation.
I see it on the sheet as 14,000, but Dennis said 14.5. So I just wanted to clarify what you think the numbers should be for that.
I mean, they were working on, it was one of these, the scoreboard, he was working on the price tag, and he had to apologize. He said he'd have me an exact number, and he really seemed to think it was closer to 14. I'd like to just put 14.5, because if it's not enough, now I got to take that out of my tool money to do it. And if we certainly were 500 over, not that you guys have a penny to spare, but I can, easily put that towards any one of the 3 or 4 scoreboards, as a touch up when they come in. So, and certainly Landrigan is probably the one that gets beat up the most. That just has a higher wind table up there for some reason, and they seem to get affected up there a little more. But so, if that helps.
Yep.
All right, thanks, Dennis. Anyone else, any specific questions on that?
Well, that's pretty clear.
Okay. All right, Dennis, thank you very much for coming in.
Drive up Hemlock Road, you'll see it. It's that big monster right on the right side. But like I said, to see that from the third baseline, it's a pretty far distance away, so it needs to be pretty sizable. So, all right, thanks.
Really quick
Thank you.
question,
All right,
Dennis.
take care.
When do you think they'll get it done then? Because baseball season's going to be pushed anyway, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that, like, if it gets pushed back, like last year, it didn't start until closer to June. So, I mean, if as soon as we get through town meeting, if this was, they're local, I don't think this is anything out of the ordinary. This is a pretty basic scoreboard for them. I think this could happen pretty quickly. So
Okay.
he didn't seem to think that this was, way in advance. So I think we'd have more time, trying to figure out what we want on that bunting, but that obviously can be added at any time.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Dennis.
Any other questions?
No.
All right.
Thanks, buddy.
Take care.
All right,
Bye-bye.
take care.
Dan, you made it on video, I see.
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah. I pressed every button I could find.
All right, I don't see Jeff from the IT on.
I was
Um,
reading Joe's email. I think he was saying that Jeff and Todd are gonna come next meeting.
Like Wednesday's meeting.
Yeah.
Did he send that to all you guys?
No,
The
you
one that, the one that you forwarded, yeah.
You forwarded it.
Oh, Todd had something.
When did that come?
Oh, for some reason I read that as he was coming tonight and Todd was coming next meeting. Oh, well, you guys are good. Thank you. So yeah, they're both coming next meeting. All right.
Yeah.
I felt like Jeff was coming tonight for some unknown reason. It was just in my head. That makes tonight real easy then. So we can review if, Phil, if you want to put, there you go. If you want to put that up, we can go through. Unfortunately, Joe had to go to the town council meeting tonight, which is fine. I mean, we still have Wednesday to talk about all this.
Now we can get rid of all of his, vehicles because he's not. So just so everyone knows, I went ahead and I highlight any changes from our last meeting. I just highlighted in yellow just to point out because there were a bunch of changes. So I just figured it would be, so that's why if you see something in yellow, but you didn't see it in the sheet Frank sent, I did that just to show like what was changed. Okay.
So Phil, if it's okay, let's go down. I did talk to Joe today, so I can give everyone an overview of the changes. So the first one there, the utility truck, the 2013 utility truck,
Yep.
it's not urgent. It definitely can be pushed off. He doesn't need it. So we just cut $75,000 off right there. The storage shed, again, isn't an urgent item. And it's not just Joe making these decisions. He's been talking to his department heads and everyone else involved to make these decisions. So these aren't all just Joe making final decisions, just so we know. But obviously, if we want to have input to change something, we can. But I think Joe's recommendations are pretty solid. So the storage shed's good. If we go down to the next one for the Doyle School, I'm going to open up. Did I forward you guys an email from the school department or no? I don't remember.
I didn't see one.
No,
No,
okay.
I didn't see one.
All right, so real quick, and please ask me a question about it if it's confusing. So on the previous plan, you had remove old boiler and abatement, which included removing the boiler because it's so large and they need the space. And obviously it had to be abated to have some materials that were hazardous in it. And then they also asked for the abatement of the tile and to replace it. We brought up a question and they were both 25, as you can see, they were $25,000 each, which was an estimate, a pretty good estimate. So we brought up the question, if you did them both at the same time, could we save some money on the abatement? Because in my business, I know if you bring in an abatement company once and get it all done, it can save you some money. If you have to bring them in twice, there's a mobilization fee just to get them out. So they're going to charge you $4,000 just to come out for one day. So if you can do everything at once, it does save you money. So I'm sorry I didn't forward you the email, but I'm going to overview it real quick. And if you do, and Bob from the school who presented at the last meeting, he did all the homework on this. I'm not taking any responsibility. He did it and they gave him a better price. Is if they did them both at the same time, they could save, all right, so I won't say the savings. So if they did them both at the same time, the top one, which is the boiler abatement, can be done for $20,000. And then the abatement of the, oh no, let me go down a little more. Then the floor saving, due to the floor would be done for the tile abatement would be down to, I think 12, I have 12,800 here.
Wow.
But the total was 47,000 for both. That 47,000 is a good number. I might just not be reading my email right. I'm looking, you guys aren't looking at what I'm looking at, but Bob did his homework on this. And so the savings are roughly $6,400 on the, because, so the 25 and the 25 was an estimate. It was above that. And then it was about 53,000. And then to do them both together was 47,000. So it was around $6,000 savings to do them both together. That's how he explained it to me. We can have Bob back on Wednesday. If anything I'm saying is confusing or you want to ask him direct questions, he has no problem coming on and talking to us. I know we didn't talk about this as an urgent item, but considering if you look at the bottom line, that our bottom line actually dropped, I think this is something we can do to help the schools, especially since they can save money to get them both done together. I'm sorry if I confuse anybody. If there's any questions on both of those, I can either forward you the email I got from Bob, or I can try to explain it to you.
Frank, I thought that was
Yes.
that was pretty clear, but I got a question. I don't know how important this is, but the abatement alone of asbestos tile was a T2, was a tier 2 priority. I realize you save money if you do both of them at the same time, but it looks like one of them is a secondary preference.
And yes, and Dan, the reason why I brought up, if you look at the bottom line down at the bottom,
Yeah.
we're actually, because of all the work Joe did over the past week. So that 1964 includes the abatement.
Okay.
Without the abatement, it was closer to 1.9. So I had asked Joe, I just said, put it in there so everyone can see the number.
And we're still below 2 million.
964. So we're still well within our window.
Good.
Now,
All right.
Dan, if you determine something else to be more important than that, we can change it. There's no problem with that. But I didn't, considering that everything else we talked about as a group, we had already, come to a rough understanding on. I didn't think, to do this for Bob. And
Sure.
we'll review some other things that got taken out that kind of open up the room for it. And I'll just say right off the top, the $60,000 for the carpets from the library got taken out because there's some FEMA money in there. I don't know if it's specifically FEMA, but there's some money that the library got last year for help that they can use to replace the rugs.
Good.
So there's an example right there to let the schools use that money for this. And, we don't have to give the library any capital funds. Stuff like that. Again, it's all debatable. But at this point, everything we're going to go through, we're going to go through everything that's under the budget. And these are all mostly they're all Joe recommendations. So even the scoreboard that we talked about, the reason why he put that in there is because of the cuts that he was able to, I don't want to say cuts, because of the deductions that he was able to make in the original budget because of funds from other sources.
Yeah.
But I talked to Bob off the record on this as well. To get both those items done for them would be huge. And we're going to save a little bit of money by getting them done together. Again, one of them's a T1 because it's that boiler, it's mainly a space issue for them. And it is a hazard to be there. And we're kind of throwing the tiles and replacing the tiles in with them because they need to be done eventually. It's still a T2, but getting them both done together can save us some money or save the town some money. I hate speaking. I hate trying to speak for something specifically as opposed to them. We can get Bob in here on Wednesday if anyone has a real issue with it and want to speak about it. But Joe will also be here Wednesday, and he'll be able to give some credible back information on it as well.
Okay, we might raise it with him on Wednesday if it looks like there's another priority that we could insert instead of the asbestos abatement.
And Joe, and again, Joe is well versed in it. He'll be able to tell
Sure.
us, I'm sure.
It's fine.
Okay, going down to the fire escape repair. I believe we decided last one that it wasn't urgent because it wasn't a safety issue. So that's why Joe took it out.
Well, it is a safety issue in that a safety inspection is required every so many
Yes.
years by the state, but I don't know if it's necessarily a capital issue, but I don't remember we removed it, but sort of, it needs to get done though. The problem with removing it is the town still needs to do it. So they can't, it's one of these things, they can't just keep on punting down the field because it's a safety inspection that's required, and it is a fire escape in an elementary school, in an old elementary school. So, it's 10 grand. I don't mind keeping it, but at the same time, I don't mind getting rid of it, but the town still has to do it. And I know we have no power over that, so.
Let's ask Joe about it on Wednesday. I'll make a note.
Yeah.
The reason why he says, I know he says out per CPC, but there could have been obviously another reason. It could have been funded from something else.
Yeah.
I think he left thinking that it was going to be an operating expense.
Yeah,
Maybe,
I think
it
that's the way
might
we
be
may have
funded
left it.
somewhere else.
maybe.
We can ask Joe on Wednesday for sure. All right. Next is the window replacement on the fire station. Joe got a good number, and I think that reduced that number to $8,500.
Jeez.
So
For
we
all
were
the
already,
windows?
what's that?
For all the windows, do we know?
We can ask Joe on Wednesday. I don't know the amount, if that is everything, or if it was just what he budgeted. I think he budgeted all the windows originally. Yeah, how many? Perfect. So that's a good Joe item for Wednesday. And then there's the library, and he did tell me that the carpet was gonna be done by other funding. And the $10,000 for the stair exploration, that again is just money to explore what is the problem. It's not really to resolve anything. And I know we've raised that as, is it a capital issue? So we're pushing it off so we can deal with it next year. And maybe they'll even have funds to deal with it. So they won't come back with it with us.
Yeah, this was already pushed off.
Yeah.
I would like to see this done. I think until you explore it, you're not going to know what the issue is. And it's a beautiful building and piece of property, and God forbid the stairs fail and collapse, and now we have the whole front entrance barricaded. I feel the 10,000 is worth it and should be kept in the plan.
I do too. It's a safety issue.
Yeah, it could be. These
Well, it could
stairs
be
start
safety
falling. We need to know what the problem is in order to come up with the solution. And the only way to do that is to spend some money, to spend more money, right? So,
Right.
but it's probably more of a Joe item, I guess, on what he feels. But again, I don't like punting and pursuing a grant. Pursuing is great. That doesn't mean you're going to get it. And then another fiscal year goes by, and now we're 3 years after when it was first approved, which was last year. So.
Yeah, and grants, I mean, traditionally, you only get a grant 10% of the time. So, I mean, the way I look at this, kind of separating this out from operating, is this is planning and research, right? So we need planning and research before we can invest. So it makes sense. It's capital. And we did discuss this last year, and they were going to try to think of a way to do it. And clearly, I think, and we took that savings last year. Clearly, they didn't come up with any, kind of earth-shaking way to get it done. So I think keeping it in the plan as an expense this year, yeah, because those stairs are huge, and if one of them goes, it's going to break, and then we're going to be in a world of hurt.
Yeah, this is small money. It keeps us under the 2 million too. So I think it's worth doing just to a stitch in time.
Okay, we can, I'll make a note to talk about that as well. Again, this could be something Joe might be able to do under something else. That might have been why. I mean,
Yeah.
I know he said pursue with the grant, but we'll definitely ask him, and I'll make a note to talk about that. Next item, the 2 boilers for the senior center. They obviously sharpened their pencil, they didn't, Joe didn't. The people they were talking to, they were able to get some better pricing, but I think obviously that's something we need to do, and we're saving 15 or 14,000 right off the top by his final pricing. That helps out, that helps us out a lot. The next item is the third electric panel. I think Joe talked about last meeting that they were getting it done with other funds, operational funds, because it was needed right away. And then the Hartshorn roof. This was added. This is also new this week. But I believe, I don't see it.
Yikes.
I believe it replaces the one for the town hall roof. That was 60,000 that they were asking for last week. I'm gonna look at I'll look at my old file, but so I don't want to say it's a wash, but that's why that number is a little different. I think this might have been a recommendation from Steve Mayo to get done because of the input he's had from the town. But I believe the town hall roof is disappeared.
Okay,
I
well,
don't see it.
yeah, if it's just the roof on the Hartshorn,
Yeah.
that can't be $50,000. That's
Well,
half that.
Well, no, the reason Joe talked about it last time, it's not a shingle, it's not an asphalt shingle roof, which would cost $15,000. It's an old,
It's late.
since it's
Slate, yeah.
it's a state registered house, it needs to have the wood shingles done. And
Oh,
it
it's
costs 3 times the money.
No, it's
Joe said he could have the shingles done for like 15,000, but because it's, historical monument in the town, they need to do it with the wood shingles. So that's why that cost is so high. And I
Only
believe
part of
that's,
it's wood shingle. It's not all wood shingles, is it?
No.
Yeah,
but
but still, yeah.
Yeah.
no, we can ask Joe about it on Wednesday, not a problem. But I know most of it is, the main part of that house is wood shingles.
Hmm.
And Joe would do it in asphalt shingles tomorrow if they let him, but it's out of his, I believe it's out of his control.
So I'm sure it needs to get done, but again, when Joe prepared the town hall, the explanation was that the parapet roof needs to be replaced as fasteners have failed and are poking through the roof, seams are leaking, and the insulation underneath is soaked.
Yeah.
You know, when insulation starts getting soaked under a roof, you're in borrowed time like that. You can't let that continue. That's just going to be exponentially more if all the insulation needs to get thrown out. And I know, Steve's not on the call. I don't think his office is under this old roof that's leaking, but it's his house, so to say. It's his town hall. That's where his office is. Again, we're punting a leaking roof down another year. It's not going to get any better. It's not going to get cheaper.
When I was in there, I guess 2 springs ago, it was leaking.
Yeah,
I don't know why it wasn't, I don't know why it just didn't come up until now.
It's a beautiful old house, it's a beautiful old building, and I know this is the new addition that needs it. I don't know. I'd love to see both done. If Hearthstone, they just know their roof. Like, where did this come from? I guess. But those are my thoughts on on those 2 things. I think town hall should stay on, but
Is it even on this plan, or did he just like delete? the
no, he
line
replaced.
altogether?
He took out the line item altogether and
Wow.
put and the Hearthstone house is now in its place
That's interesting.
for the same amount. Let's see. So
It was 60,000 before, I believe.
yeah. Yes, it was 60 grand for town hall,
Yeah.
even though his PDF, his ask said 54,000.
Yeah. All right, I will, another discussion point for Joe. Joe's on top of all this stuff, so I'm not worried about
I
him.
know, and it's his
Um,
house too, these guys live and work in this building, but it's just based on what they were saying is wrong with the existing roof. It's surprising they very quickly removed it from the list.
Okay, and like I said, anytime anyone has anything else to say, please jump in. I'm just gonna keep going down the list to get through. So obviously, the next two items, the Woodville Gym floor and the HVAC recommissioning, there's been discussion, so Joe, in talking to people, obviously has taken them off this year's want list. And he's got some explanation there over on the right. The same with the Ewell School boiler replacement and floor abatement. It looks like they're gonna explore long-term usage for the building. But that obviously helps us out. This is knocking a lot of money off our current year plan. The road paver, which in the business, I thought 60,000 was low, but he's gonna send us a spec sheet by next meeting. Apparently, it's a different one that I'm not even aware of, that's even less money that they can use for the patches and for the sidewalks, which would be perfect. If 48,000 is his final pricing, I think it's a no-brainer for him, because they do it two ways now, which, again, I can explain it. Joe can explain it much better than me, but I know how they do it. They either just throw down all the asphalt and rake it out by hand and then roll it, which obviously might make it a little bumpy, or else they have to sub it out and pay a little bit more money in a different budget to have it done, which costs them more money. So it's a good item to have, but Joe can talk about that on Wednesday as well. He's still without I know it wasn't a change. The ADA transition plan right above is still in there. And I don't think anyone had any problems with that, but if we do, Joe can go further on that on Wednesday. I noticed that was still in there, and I think that's a big item for them to have that money to give them to be able to do all that stuff with the schools. I think it's mostly the schools, even though it's some intersections. Sorry, Phil. Now, yeah, going down, you have the blower, the leaf blower that Dennis originally asked for 12,000 in there, which doesn't seem like a big item right now. And then that scoreboard replacement, the 14,000 is in there. And this has been talked about for a couple of years. And with the way our budget's been, it does get pushed. It's not been on our budget at all, but I know it's been discussed, because I've been involved with the baseball and with the school fields and the youth fields, and I know they've always talked about it. But since the softball field just got done this year, well, this past year, the scoreboard was actually donated, but the town put in the 200,000 to do the field, and we also put in that was for the softball field. And then we also put in money for the baseball field to do the new netting to protect the tennis courts. And the town on its own built the new baseball infield, which they spent a lot of money on. So the school board is kind of like an afterthought, which is a small money item. I personally don't think it's going to cost $14,000, but they're being safe by putting that in there. I think they'll get it for less money, but that's, for us, it is what it is. They don't want to say 10 and then have it be more money. I'm going to recommend that we do that scoreboard for them, especially since we have the leeway in the bottom line for this year. But again, that's a debatable item as well for everybody. Again, I'm blowing through these. Please jump in. Don't feel like we're shutting anyone out. The scoreboard with the cage, that was for the inside for the basketball court. That was a want. It wasn't a high item, but apparently there were some people who wanted to donate some money for it. And we were able to push that off another year. The big issue with that, knowing personally, was the electrician has to repair it every year. So it's not that it doesn't work. It just has a lot of manual labor that needs to be done to keep it going. So that's not a do or die. Like the baseball scoreboard, it doesn't work. They can't use it, like Dennis said. So that's a do or die. At least the one inside the field house, it does work. It just takes some TLC. And the last big item that I talked to Joe about today, the projectors. I don't want to say too much. I'll let Joe talk more about it. And obviously Todd and Jeff can talk about it on Wednesday. But there's a discrepancy whether we need to replace them all or that they can be salvaged to be run as good as new. And again, that's where you see that it's a third the cost is because of recommendations made. I don't want to, we still have to hear from IT and we still can hear from Joe. So that's what they're going to talk about on Wednesday. This is going to be their main point is the projectors. And if we keep that number down and everything we just talked about stays, we're still under $2 million, as you can see. And the only thing we really added was the scoreboard for 14,000. So without the scoreboard, we're still at 1,950,000, which isn't too bad. So if you want to add in the 10,000 for this and for that, like we talked about on Wednesday, we can certainly do that. I don't think it's going to be a big deal. But that's it. I ran through that real quick. Full discussion. What do you guys want to talk about? Oh, let me add, I'm sorry. See the spare projectors? It went down to 0 is because in that number for the projectors, obviously we're not replacing them for 200,000. We're repairing and fixing them. They feel like there'll be enough extras in that number to cover the spare projectors. And again, they'll talk about that on Wednesday. But they did mention that to me today.
The Nova time, I thought the school department, that was a T1 ask, and I know they asked, I think that was the ones we approved last year and we had a cut because of everything.
Yes.
I just wonder who's recommending to push it back. Is that the school department is recommending that, or is that a Steve Joe discussion? You
That
think?
could be a Steve Joe. I'll make sure we ask him on Wednesday.
Yeah, I just by principle hate spending. You know, we've been around 2.1, I think, the last few years. And I don't really see many reasons why we should be reducing our capital budget.
Right.
I'd love to hear why we're trying to keep this under 2 all of a sudden.
Oh, I think this, again, my opinion, I think it's only under 2 because he just went through and made all his recommendations and cuts, and then that's where we landed.
Oh,
I
okay.
don't
He's
think
not
it's,
saying this is our number. Like, do we have a
Nope.
number from Steve yet?
Steve said keep it around 2 like he always does every year.
Around 2. Okay.
So
Two-
again, if we went above 2, we could ask.
Got it. Okay. Got it.
This number certainly isn't something he said to stick to. It's something we got to because he knocked off a bunch of stuff.
Oh, Joe, Frank, I noticed these things too. These were changed. And I know this is not big, but we usually don't get into this much, but just, these numbers changed from the last sheet, the sewer and water division.
Yeah.
And again,
Let's-
not big either way, but it just, those were at 165 and 255.
Yeah.
And now it's 170. So I just noticed it was a change, and this doesn't come out of our capital. This is below the line. This doesn't come out.
And I did ask Joe a specific question. The truck he took out back at the top in his fleet section for 74,000. This is the first year we haven't had a sewer or a water vehicle. And I asked him if we could, put that vehicle, the $75,000 vehicle down there. so he could still get it. And what he did, if you go back down, Phil, the reason why I asked him that is because the system improvement numbers for both were a lot lower, and this year they're up higher.
Mm.
And that's why I asked him that question. If we could put that, I don't want to say hide's a bad word, insert that vehicle there and keep his improvement numbers down. And he says, no, because it's going to be used by the DPW and not the water department, that he can't do it that way. So that's why he upped those numbers to keep them close to where they've been and giving him more improvement money, which they always need.
Hey Frank, do you know why we look at these at all? These sewer and water breakouts?
I think it's a technicality, Dan, as far as capital plan goes, but
Yeah,
because as far as I've known, it's nothing we've even had control of.
yeah, we
They
can't
just-
touch it. Yeah,
They just tell us, all right, we're gonna do this on this, just so you know.
okay.
And we have to vote to approve it, which means that FinCom has to vote to approve it and town council does, and then we go to the town meeting. Yeah, it's kind of a strange item.
Okay,
Both of those divisions are strange because they're self-sufficient. I guess that's the best word for them.
yeah,
Obviously, we all pay into water and sewer, so it's not
Right.
coming out of our taxes. It's paid out of their funds. So I don't really, we can ask Joe to explain that to us on Wednesday. I'll write that down too. To explain how that budget works. All right, I did a lot of talking tonight. Anybody else have any comments on everything? So Wednesday we'll have the IT department. And that'll be our main meeting to talk about everything. And if everything goes well, I think it's next Tuesday, the 16th. It'll be our final meeting. And all that should be is for us to approve the meeting. It should be a vote on final approval of our budget. As long as on Wednesday, we all agree on everything.
We don't have a meeting on the 22nd. What did I? Oh, you know
No,
what?
no, I think
That's
the
my
16th
other, no,
The
that's
16th is the
another.
last one.
That's right. Yep.
And the question came up, we could approve it on the 10th, but it's only for next Tuesday, the 16th. It literally should be a 15-minute meeting that we all just get together and make sure nobody changed their mind about anything. And we just vote on it and say yay or nay and approve it. But this Wednesday, the 10th, will be our big final meeting to discuss everything. It's going to be a little longer now. Obviously, IT has to present, but that's not a bad thing. And that's it. If yeah, we can talk about it tonight, any of these items, or save your questions for Joe and we can drill him all night Wednesday night because he'll be ready for us. Joe's done a lot of work on this the last week.
Mm-hmm.
It
He feels
like
bad
we're in a
calling
good
me every
space.
day and I tell him not to feel bad at all.
We're good. I'm good. I have no more
Yeah,
questions.
it looks fine. Looks fine.
I know he met with IT today in his office because they had other issues tonight. That's why Todd couldn't make it. Maybe he told me. I thought he had told me that Jeff was coming tonight. That's what it was strange. But I will
Alright.
forward you the email that I was sent from about the IT stuff. And the flooring from the Doyle School. The abatement stuff, so you guys can see the numbers from Bob specifically. And then we can ask Joe any questions about that.
Can I just ask, this had occurred to me and maybe this isn't the right forum to ask the question. For Wakefield, is capital run kind of, Joe's a great asset, right? He does a really good job on this. Does that mean that the management of the capital budget falls under the Department of Public Works here in Wakefield? I'm just wondering why we don't see more of the FinCom on this. Usually capital budgets are, you know, obviously they're, the schools and DPW are going to be, you know, heavy subscribers to the capital budget, but it's still run out of the finance committee.
I think.
I
just by-
can go to Steve on that too. If
Yeah,
that's,
no, that's a good Steve question, but from my experience from the last 10 years or so,
Mhm.
Joe has a handle on everything,
yeah,
school, and it's not like people don't need his approval for everything, but he has a handle on everything. So he understands everything. And again, you could say that, what power does our committee really have? We have recommendations. So we go to FinCom with our recommendations, we go to town council with our recommendations. And if there were any problems with it, or if they had any problems with our recommendations, they could certainly voice them at that time. And then we'd have to
sure.
reassess, but
No,
It
I wasn't
seems as
having,
though- Oh, sorry.
go ahead.
I was gonna say, it seems as though over the past few years, I've only been on for a few years now, that because so many line items can be handled or partially handled by DPW, then that's why they are the administrator of the spreadsheet, basically.
Right. The thing that got me thinking was the two efforts that are going on. One, you know, basically modernizing Main Street and what is it, Wakefield 2030. And you know, those are pretty exciting. And you'd think that we'd be starting to think about, like, okay, how do we start, you know, guiding some capital into those efforts, or vice versa. They would be coming to us and say, hey, what have you seen over the last couple of years that might inform those efforts? It was just a question. I'm not trying to undermine anything or anything like that. I was just interested.
I agree. I think that the communication has been close to none, actually, obviously. But I've been to meetings of the reorganizing of the town, and for the bike path to the changing. And a lot of that money is, if we agreed to do certain things, then a lot of it was going to be federal money anyway. So like millions of federal money. So
Like the bike lanes, I think, is one of those, Tracy. Like if we.
yeah, they're
put in
taking
bike
away
lanes,
yes, yeah.
Yeah, like we
I went to
get
those meetings. Yeah.
tons of money. So even though people like, oh, we don't need bike, yeah, but you're opening up the door to like all these funds. Theo, who was on this call when everyone was logging on, he's either running for or on the planning board, and he was just asking at the very start, he was trying to understand how capital planning interacts with other boards, like planning or something. And Frank sort of, you know, explained kind of how we work. So to this point about boards talking and about these plans, I think it's definitely a big conversation, I think, about how is there things we should be approving or not approving, knowing that these other big plans are coming down the road.
And what I've always noticed over the years, if there's a big dollar item, let's say a fire truck, that should be a capital item, obviously, but it costs $1 million. It always gets pushed off to an article,
Yeah, warrant item, yeah.
which is the same as downtown or the downtown revitalization, or,
Yeah, there was.
you know, we only have so much money to replace police cars and
Yep.
pickup trucks.
Frank, do we need to approve the 3-2 meeting minutes? And
Yes.
do we need to invite FinCom? Which meeting are they coming to?
Oh, sorry, I should mention that too. Joe Bertrand is coming Wednesday as well.
Okay,
And all that means, everybody, is that he's gonna listen in and he's gonna give us any comments about the budget. I don't know if Joanne and Dan are gonna come too. They usually do. But definitely Joe on Wednesday. So he'll hear IT, we'll talk to Joe, and then we can discuss and get us to our final number. And like I said, hopefully at this point, Tuesday, the 16th, will just be us voting the final budget. Wednesday's the 10th. And if it goes, if it goes 2 hours, that's long for us, but it is what it is. Back 10 years ago, we used to have 4-hour meetings and it was painful. But it's, I mean, as long as we get all our questions answered, which we usually, which again, Joe's fantastic. Taking nothing away from Rick back in the years before him. Joe's on top of everything. He knows. And he's a good asset to have for the town. I mean, for our case, again, we're only making recommendations. They could say, we could tell them that we want a new playground at Woodville, and they could tell us that's ridiculous. There's no need for that. But they listen to us. I think that's a good thing. But please, if you guys have questions, sometime email Joe direct. Joe's good. I can only reiterate what Joe says and regurgitate, I should say. But anything specific that, I mean, we don't have any life or death matters on our budget, but to some people, it is life or death.
Right, I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from the last meeting.
Okay, was that the second or the third? The third, right?
That was,
Not
second.
third.
No, third.
oh, the third,
Not
yeah.
third. So
Alright.
was that a second, Phil, or was that March 2nd?
I second the third.
All right. And if no other questions, then our next meeting, we'll meet on Wednesday, the 10th. I'll send out the Zoom link again, and we'll have IT. We'll have Joe Bertrand from the FinCom and Joe Conway, and hopefully we can all bring this all together and get us the $2 million.
Okay,
All
Sounds
right.
good.
And if anyone has a problem about the 16th, we can make it later. If we're just gonna vote to approve it, and it's only gonna take us 10 minutes, then the time isn't a big issue. So just to let
Right.
you know that, let me know on Wednesday.
good.
All right,
I
Dan, go
move-
ahead.
I move we adjourn. You got me.
I second.
All right, thanks, everybody.
All right.
Thank you.
have a
Yeah,
good
good night.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
All right.